to have. And since we are practitioners, me and General Man, the last 3.5, 4 years, a lot of things we have done, but I think it is not the time for us to tell you what we have done. I will start from the self-critical mode, what we have not done and what we need to do. And I think it's important to know, General Chanal also spoke about the history. Let's start with the historical perspective for around a minute or so. And we start from when we got independence. We had 12 ordnance factories. That's where we started. Very rudimentary stuff we used to make. From that 12 ordnance factories to 10 labs of DRDO, and in between that, a very important resolution which the Indian government passed on. That's called the Industrial Policy Resolution. I'm sure some of you know about it. The Industrial Policy Resolution of 1948 made a very landmark decision in the history of this country. And that decision was that the defense procurement will be reserved for public sector and the private sector will be kept out of it. At that point in time must have been a very good decision to make because we were in the shadows of the Britishers. But I think that became a problem. The same problem which possibly General Chanan highlighted, what America did at that point in time, that we did not have the private sector contributing to the defense manufacturing ecosystem. And it took 6 decades for us to realize this, unfortunately. We went into a system where we started relying on the Russian systems from 1965 onwards. 1965 to 1980, what did we have? We had either the Russians supplying equipment directly to us, or we went into a mode called licensed production. So we came into that mode that the technology was always from the Russians or technology was always from outside, and we only graduated to what we call it the know-how. That is, how do you do this? But we never thought about knowing the know-why. And I think that's the difference of make in India to made in India. And I think today when we discuss about Atmanirbhar Bharat, it is not make in India alone. And I think make in India is a smaller subset of it because now it is made in India, which will make you self-reliant. And the reason why we are sitting all of us here is that when we talk about today the aerospace technology and we look at whether it is the jet engines for the fighters, or we look at the engines for the helicopters, or we look at even the UAV propulsion systems, for all this we are dependent on foreign technologies. And Dr. Ranjana also spoke about it, that now we are trying to possibly get those technologies under our belt. We don't have composites, we don't have high temperature alloys, we don't have semiconductor technology. In any case, a lot has been spoken by Mr. Anshuman. So this transition which we have to take now from make in India to made in India is possibly the opportunity and also a challenge. And I think today, if you ask the Army, Navy, and Air Force, what ails you today? What is the problem that you face, which is the maximum problem, is the supply chain vulnerability that you're going to have, that your supply chains and your technology vulnerability is the most important thing that is ailing us. While General Man gave you the technology challenges, the technology perspective capability roadmaps, is giving you compendium of problem definition statements, all has been given from our side. But the problem is, do we convert this into IPs? Do we convert this into IPRs? Is our troika of the industry, armed forces, academia, DRDO, if I may also include academia, including DRDO, is this troika working fine? Is this troika working the way we desire it to work today is the topic of this Swayam Bodh, which I would possibly like to discuss. I had a few slides, but I think since the time has gone, I'll just say the 3 most important things that as practitioners of defense capital procurement we are looking at. 3 basic challenges, and for those challenges, what are the opportunities? The first challenge I talked about is the dependence and over-dependence on foreign technologies. So the first thing is, how do you overcome this challenge of or over-dependence on foreign technologies? So if you look at very big technologies, these technologies have to be, you have to separate them out from procurement. All R&D in defense, fortunately or unfortunately, is ending into procurement. Essentially, IDEX ends into procurement, make ends into procurement, D&D ends into procurement, which means we are procurement-centric mindset, that everything should finally convert into a product, everything should finally convert into a sellable this thing with certain numbers coming in. So what happens? Each of these people are targeting what? They are targeting the product. They are not targeting how you are realizing that product. So we have an Arjun with what kind of technologies we know and what kind of technology dependence we know. We have Tejas, we know what kind of technology dependence we have. We have many such systems where the technology dependence is there. And then we have an integrated missile development program in the same time frame. Why an integrated missile development program or a space program is a huge success and some other places the success is not there. So there comes this topic of technology leadership. And I think a very important aspect which is missing is the structure and the technology leadership. When I say structure, how many IITs today have an MTech program on defense technology? How many IITs today have a PhD program on a defense technology? And the answer is very little. And the reason is very obvious, because there is no model of their being employed into an industry. The moment the industry sees that if there is a link between what you study in academic establishment to what you finally practice as your profession, if there is a link, things will move. And then comes this government model of the DARPA model or things like that, where the government has to take ownership of this entire mental. And I'm very happy to say that the last 4, 5, 6 years, things have changed drastically. Our approach as government, our approach as MOD, our approach as services has changed a great deal. We are trying to be as fast as the technology cycle. I'm afraid we are not, but we have found ways and means to address that. So when we do emergency procurement, we try to catch up that technology cycle, while we are looking at a bigger system which takes 8 years or 10 years to develop. That means we are going multi-pronged to address this fast pace of technology and a slow pace of procurement. And I think we can match it by a multi-pronged approach. Certain smaller technologies can be developed faster, have to be procured faster. Certain key technologies, niche technologies have to go onto a national mission. When I say national mission, it means it is not the responsibility of only the defense ecosystem to make those technologies. It is the responsibility of this country to make those defense technologies. Which means whether it is a scientist, whether it is a technologist, whether it is an IIT or it is an NIT, or it may be even any other establishment in this country which has to come together to make these technologies. And we have to identify those 6, 7, 8, 9 technology missions. These missions have to be taken ownership. They have to go on a projectized mode. They don't have to be linked with procurement. The failure, the ability to absorb failure as government, as technical establishment, as armed forces has to be built in. And I think that's the self-critical part. We have not accepted the fact that we will try and fail. And I think in D&D, in research and development, the first acceptance is that we will try honestly, but if we fail, we will not be questionable. We can still move ahead and keep developing in spiral. So this spiral development, how did it come about? This spiral development came about by this fact that you may not be in the first go hit the bullseye, and therefore we will accept something lower than what you are able to achieve. So what the armed forces, and I'm talking about all the 3 armed forces, is this spiral development is that you start on a project, you achieve 70, 80%. We accept 70, 80% because you are indigenous, because the IP is with us, because the supply chain is with us, because in the time of need, you will not fail us. And that's the reason we will go that way. I think as armed forces, we have decided that we will handhold academia, DRDO, industry alike. That is our job. In procurement also, incentivizing ID, and ID means indigenous design, and incentivizing IC, both is being looked at in the present DAP. So incentivizing an indigenous design, when there is somebody competing with a foreign IPR, indigenous design will win. And similarly, if you were asked to achieve 60% indigenous content, but at the production stage, you achieve 80% indigenous content, you will get more than what the contract has given you the value. You will get 10% extra in the contract. In the upgrade also, certain amount of upgrades for the obsolescence management during the time when the delivery is happening. In case you have come up with an upgrade, certain amount of value will be given to you for an upgrade as part of the initial contract. We are trying to create opportunities for our own selves to be more nimble-footed, to be more flexible when it is coming to procurement. And I think the very basic changes with the low-cost capital acquisition, which you see, long-term bulk capital acquisition, these I'm sure people would have read. These are in the drafts of the DAP, where we are making changes. We are saying a low-cost capital acquisition essentially means that today in DAP 2020, if I buy a bulletproof jacket or I buy an aircraft, if it is by Indian IDDM, the process is same. And our question is, why should a bulletproof jacket be bought with the same procedure with which an aircraft is to be bought if it is by Indian IDDM? Why can't there be product-specific, value-specific, procedures? And that's the reason a low-cost capital acquisition is a chapter which is coming up in the DAP, wherein the cost of the item will decide the procedure, or the technology level of that item will decide the procedure. Similarly, fast-track procedure. Somebody talked about the technology cycle and the procurement cycle not matching. So fast-track procedure now also has this ability that in case you can bring new technology, it will be put into fast-track procurement. So today the fast-track procurement is not only that when you have an operational need, when there is a red flag, when the country is in distress, that is the only time that the fast-track procedure can be invoked. No, fast-track procedure can be invoked if you are talking about a technology which is niche, because the niche technology development cycle has to match the procurement cycle, and therefore we will contract them in six months, and we'll try and get it in 1 year time. So our ability to do emergency procurement kind procurement for fast technology items is, or fast technology subsystems is what we are doing. Lastly, and very importantly, which I would like to put to this audience, is that the responsibility of the bigger players, the responsibility of the DPSUs, the responsibility of the bigger private players is also there to give smaller products for indigenization to their suppliers, to their Indian suppliers, to create the value chains within the country, to create redundancy for those items for which they are presently dependent on the foreign OEMs, which will create a dual impact. One, that your supply chains will be robust. Two, that those items for which the dependencies right now they're on the foreign OEM, you will start having those things being developed indigenously by your own, your own country people. So certain amount of contract value which we give to you as big contracts, 30,000 contract, a crore contract, or a 25,000 crore contract, which we keep signing these days. Those kind of contracts, when they go to a certain Bharat Electronics or a certain BDL or a certain Tata or a certain Bharat Forge, they should have the ability to create value chain indigenously by giving smaller things to the MSME startups. And I think this way we will start getting not only improving our things in the indigenous content, but slowly in the indigenous design. And I think Atmanirbharta truly will begin when you have technology sovereignty. Unless you have technology sovereignty, Atmanirbharta will be a distant dream. And I think what we are doing as a country, as a system, as MOD, as this defense manufacturing ecosystem, I think we are on the right path. It's only a matter of time. These countries have taken 30 years, 40 years, 50 years to reach where they are. Our industry is just about 10 years when it has got certain things to do. I recall 2010, I was very much in the defense capital acquisition, 2011, the most, I would say, preferred category was buy global. And the least preferred category was buy Indian in 2011. In 2020, it turns on its head that the buy Indian IDDM became the most preferred category and buy global became the least. This is a change in the mindset of the Indian ecosystem. It's the change in the mindset of the government. And after the Honorable Prime Minister gave this clarion call in 2020 of Atmanirbhar Bharat, both in terms of defense production and defense exports, we have made leaps and bounds of progress. And I also want to tell you that 75% of our exports today, of almost 24,000 crore, come from the private sector, and only 25% of this comes from the public sector. That means there is an ability in the Indian defense private sector to be competitive worldwide. But what we need to do is to do soul searching. Are we making things which are good enough to be given to the world? Are our quality standards in place? Are they robust? With General Sabharwal was asking, will they be okay when the terrain and the temperature condition and the altitude so desire? And I think all that needs to be seen. Thank you very much for calling me here. Good wishes to you for a good session.
Thank you very much, sir. I now invite Ms. Gayatri Devi to please felicitate sir with a token of appreciation and gratitude. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for General Vineet Gaur.